Good morning, everyone. If we're not anything, we're at least punctual in this committee. Welcome to the February 18th episode of the Commerce Committee. I'm your host, Kevin Vaughn. We'll get to a few items in a moment, but first, if everyone would log into the machine, and Madam Clerk, if we could take the roll. Let's call it at that. I see some folks are struggling to get logged in, but I think that for an old country boy, that looks like that might be a quorum. What do you think? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, you have 19 members present. You have a quorum.
Outstanding. Before we get started today, does anybody have any personal orders? Representative Lynn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today happens to be Realtor Day on the Hill, and I have my friend and neighbor and realtor, Theo Paddock. Please help me welcome her. She's with Benchmark Realty in Mount Juliet.
Thank you very much for that, and welcome to the proceedings. Anybody over on this side? Anybody on this side? Well, I have a personal order. I am joined today by the political power source from East Shelby County. The East Shelby County suburban mayors are here today. Yesterday they were on the Hill, and so if you would recognize Arlington Mayor Mike Wisman, Millington City Manager Frankie Dakin, Lakeland's mayor is Josh Roman, my mayor is Maureen Frazier, Bartlett's mayor, a good friend of mine, David Parsons, and Mr. Mike Palazzola, another good friend of mine from Germantown. So if the committee and folks could make them feel welcome. And I've got to warn y'all, a little bit sharper today. I was a Wordle in 3. So just want to let you know what type of chairman you were dealing with. My acumen, my neurons are firing today. So get ready. We're going to adjust our calendar, do a little housekeeping. House Bill 469 by Representative Reeves has been requested to be rolled for the next available calendar. I think we've got a little bit of disruption next week in our regular calendar schedule, so that will show us back in 2 weeks to have that one. If I don't hear any objection, roll the next available calendar. Okay, we'll go as printed today. Begin with House Bill 1630. By Representative Lamberth. Former Chairman Boyd, are you presenting this one today? We're trying to figure out what to call you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Highness will be fine if you.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, this is one of those perennial workers' compensation bills that's brought by the Bureau of Workers' Comp. It's a pretty simple one. It has some cleanup language. The most substantive thing that's done is they are getting a new computer system. And I've got great news. Rather than coming to the General Assembly and asking for an appropriation, they are using some excess funds from the subsequent injury fund, the what's the other fund they use here? There's a couple of funds that they have available, and they had excess funds, and they're going to fund it through that. So there will be no budget request. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
All righty. Thank you for that explanation. Do I have any questions from the committee? Any questions? Seeing no questions, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1630 on to, well, that if it's going to, let's go into calendar rules, isn't it? Finance. You're off to finance with this one. All those in favor, please signify by a green light. Does everybody cast their vote? If you haven't, please do so. And if you decide that you want to change that vote, let's get that done now, because we will conclude the voting. Madam Clerk, would you read the results, please?
Mr. Chair, you have 19 ayes and no nays.
All righty. Motion carries. House Bill 1630 is on to finance. Next on our calendar today, we see Chairman Todd. Hello, Chairman Todd. Chairman Todd's going to be talking with us about House Bill 900. You're in proper posture, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to come before your committee. House Bill 900 is a straightforward bill that promotes consistency, clarity, and fairness in how employment laws are applied across our state. At its core, this legislation ensures that local governments cannot impose employment requirements on private employers that conflict with or exceed state or federal law. Tennessee already has statutes that limit the ability of local governments to mandate certain employment policies such as leave requirements, health insurance mandates beyond federal law, or restrictions on hiring practices. This bill reinforces and clarifies that framework. For employers operating in multiple cities or counties across the state, a patchwork of local employment regulations can create confusion, increase compliance costs, and discourage economic activity. From a fiscal standpoint, the impact is minimal. Fiscal review indicates that any effect on state or local government is not significant, and local governments can comply with the bill using existing resources. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
All righty. Has anybody got any questions for the sponsor? We've got some folks that have signed up to give testimony today. We want to give them time, but if you have any questions for the bill sponsor, let's get those out of the way at the moment. Seeing none, we're going to go out of session, take some testimony, and we'll be right back with you, Chairman Todd. All right, we're out of session, and is Michael Nimmer in the audience? Michael Nimmer, are you here? I do not see Michael Nimmer, who signed up to testify. What about Michael Humbles? Michael Humbles. Mr. Humbles is here. All right, Mr. Humbles, if you'll come to the desk, sit down, give us your name and address, or where you're from. You don't have to necessarily give us your name, where you're from, who you're with, and we'll control your microphone for you. So when the red light's on, as it is now, you're free to address us. And you got 3 minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. So I'm Michael Humbles. I'm from Dixon, Tennessee, 202 Grandview Drive. Dox myself a little bit there. I'm an iron worker from the community. I'm also a union representative for Union Iron Workers 492. All right. So good morning, Chair Vaughn and members of the committee. My name is Justin Humbles. I'm an iron worker here in Tennessee. I'm here today to strongly urge this committee to oppose House Bill 900 and not to preempt local government from passing their own employment laws. We are often told that preemption is about creating uniformity across the state and remedying a patchwork of regulations that burden small business. However, ultimately, this will limit businesses and constituents' accessibility to government, take good job opportunities from our Tennesseans, our communities, limit Tennessean-owned small businesses and their opportunities to be successful, and hurt our local economies and create a potentially unsafe, untrained workforce and environment and culture on our construction projects. As an iron worker, past supervisor of work and projects, and member of the construction industry, I've seen firsthand the benefits local government can enact on projects. For example, local hire agreements enacted by municipalities on our projects have been successful in ensuring that highly skilled, trained folks from our community are working on these projects, and young folks, young people, are given the opportunity to learn a skill set and grow not into a job, but in a career. Additionally, these small businesses armed with the workforce who have the skills and knowledge necessary are unrivaled in performing on-time quality work with a culture of safety. I would be gravely concerned if any action was taken to limit local government's ability to regulate responsible bidding on construction projects. Furthermore, when we hire local, it is imperative that we not forget where our dollars are returned to. As good stewards, we must remember that small businesses depend on these dollars returning to our community. And how can we better ensure that that happens but to hire local? In conclusion, I would respectfully ask we remember locally and Tennessee-owned businesses, that we remember our highly skilled, safety-conscious community workforce. I would ask that we not take those currently reinvested dollars away from the small business owners in our towns and cities and our communities. I would ask that this committee oppose House Bill 900. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address this committee and your consideration. Thank you.
All right, so Justin, you threw is Michael,
I'm sorry. Michael's my first name. Justin's my middle name. Yes, sir.
well, I was going to say William is my government name, Kevin's my go-by name, and so I think I detected that with you. Do we have any questions for Justin, for our guest today? Any questions from the committee? Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you said something that was of interest to me. And, you know, we as a state government have really doubled down on investment in our TCATs. We have some wonderful ones here in Davidson County. We've got wonderful in Dixon, all across the state in wonderful communities. And we've really invested heavily in training the next generation of workers. And I know there's wonderful apprenticeship programs across the state as well, with which I'm sure you're familiar. And so something you said really spoke out to me that I hadn't considered was the impact that this could have on the ability for local governments to hire locally from those people that we're investing in and training with our tax dollars. So can you elaborate on how this bill, if passed, would hamper local government's ability to hire locally and people who we've invested in as a state to try to train them and put them on work sites? Because I've traveled around the state like everybody else up here, I'm sure, and you go to these work sites and you see people from all over the country. And so I hate for our hard-earned tax dollars being invested in these people and them not getting the jobs. And that Tennessee, you know, that revenue, that income not staying in Tennessee in our local economy and communities. So can you speak to exactly how this bill will limit us in that respect?
Absolutely, Chair Clemens. Appreciate the question. So we as a state, I think we're leaders in wanting to pursue alternative pathways for our young folks and helping ensure we grow that workforce and those young people that are interested in the trade. If we don't have local government or municipals with the opportunity to instill or insert some language around local hire, how are we ensuring that our young folks from our communities that we are training through registered apprenticeship programs, through TCAT facilities, through all these programs, how are we ensuring that they're actually getting out into the field and utilizing those on-the-job training, shadowing with the journeyman ironworker, right? And growing that next step of employment, of that next step of growth in their career, in their instruction.
Well,
Chairman Clemens, you got another question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just comment, you know, we've had a lot of bipartisan support of investment in our training programs of the state of Tennessee, the TCATs specifically, and other training programs. And I would hate for us to limit the opportunity for the young people we're training to benefit from our investment in their careers and their professional lives. And if this bill isn't going to do that in any way, I have serious concerns. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. And seeing no other question, Mr. Humbles, we appreciate you being here today and sharing your thoughts on the matter.
Thank you.
You did a great job of illustrating your point. Now then, we're going to go back into session. Chairman Todd, if you would rejoin us. I have a question, Chairman Todd. When I was listening to that, I grew concerned, but then I wanted to check and see, does this bill any way preclude local governments from hiring local workers?
No, sir, not at all. I don't know where that talking point came from. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever.
All right. Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question on the bill.
We got objection. I see two hands. All right, we'll put. I've now see 4 hands. I don't know how that's possible, but 2 of them had the same color sleeve on. All right, we'll go on the board. We'll call the question on the board. We'll put it up on the board. So we are now, for those in favor of calling the question on House Bill 900, please signify by voting either green or red. Has everybody voted? Is anybody wish to change their vote? We will call it there. Madam Clerk, you want to tell us the results?
Mr. Chair, you have 18 ayes and 3 noes.
All righty, thank you. Well, previous question carries. So with that, we are now voting on the bill itself, House Bill 900 by Chairman Todd. This vote would send it on to calendar and rules because of the lack of fiscal impact. So all those in favor, well, let's clear that board first. We get to do this again. Ah, there we go. Now then. All right, let's post them up. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote?
Mr. Chair, you have 17 ayes and 3 noes.
All righty, so with that, House Bill 900 is on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Let's head now to House Bill 1744 by Professor Baum. Representative, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn. In this country, from 1793 until 1857, we minted a 1/2 cent coin. But over time, it cost more to make that coin than the coin was worth. And so in 1857, it was discontinued. And now the same thing has happened to our penny. Last fall, the U.S. Mint stopped making pennies. And so this is a bill that provides some permissive guidance. It would put permissive guidance in our statutes to advise private companies on how to handle that when a purchase doesn't end in a number that corresponds with one of our coins. And so the guidance is as follows. It essentially says you round to the next nickel, so that if the cash purchase ended in 1 cent or 2 cents, you'd round down to 0 cents. If it ended in 3 cents or 4 cents, you'd round up. If it ended in 6 cents or 7 cents, you'd round down to 5 cents. And if it ended in 8 cents or 9 cents, you'd round up to 10 cents. Now, you may wonder why we need to put such a common sense rounding scheme into our code. And it is to provide our private businesses with safe harbor so that they would not be liable under the 1977 Consumer Protection Act. They could point to the code and say, we're using a system that is permissive. And I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right, does anybody? Oh, we do. We need to get this amendment on here first? Well, let's do that. Do I hear a motion to attach amendment number 1, which is coded 012839? I got a motion and a second. So that makes your bill, does it not?
Yes.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get that attached. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any noes? Don't hear them. Now we're in the amended posture. Any questions for the professor? Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This only applies to cash transactions?
Only applies to cash transactions and only applies to private entities, private companies. If the transaction is electronic, then you would not use this system.
Chairman Clemens.
And if it's rounded up to the nearest nickel, those additional cents, are they directed to go to a nonprofit or do they go into the Tennessee Department of Revenue?
Chairman Baum.
No, that the rounding would become then part of the transaction. It would not go to a nonprofit.
Could private businesses just opt to allow it to go to a nonprofit rather than the Department of Revenue?
Chairman Bond.
I imagine they could. This bill doesn't address that, but I'm sure that any private business has the option to donate to a nonprofit at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But this doesn't mandate that or expressly allow for that.
Chairman Bond.
It does not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Clemmons. Leader Cochran, you got a question?
One quick question. And honestly, this one what was a kind of a recent incident that brought this to my attention. So I apologize for not asking sooner. What if I have exact change? So what if it's a cash transaction, but the customer, what the total price is $8.48 and I've got $8.48. Does the rounding still occur, or can I say, okay, hold up, I've actually got exact change?
Mr. Sponsor.
The rounding would only begin once pennies are no longer in circulation. And you're correct, even though pennies are no longer being minted, they are still in circulation, and we expect them to be for at least a short period of time. But we do think the time will come when they won't be in circulation, and this would be a permissive way of rounding when that time comes.
Leader.
Okay, and so if they use this permissive policy, and the customer has exact change under the policy, does that matter one way or the other? I mean, at that point, is it the business's prerogative to either round up or not if the customer has it?
Stand by just 1 second, Leader. We're going to go out of session I've got a flash message from Legal Services that can deal with this issue. So we're out of session.
Levin Crutchfield, Office of Legal Services. So the bill does specify that if the private entity doesn't have the exact change, then they can do the rounding. It would seem that also if the customer has exact change, you wouldn't need to round. So.
All righty. We're going to get back into session. Any other questions? Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would think that if we're rounding down, we're rounding up over time for both the consumer and the business, it would kind of equalize itself, because you're either rounding down or rounding up. Every transaction is different. On average, you're probably going to have an equalization. Would you think so?
Sponsor.
I think that's largely correct, although I do know of some economic data, some economic studies that suggest that companies tend to like to price their things in numbers that end in one, like what, $1.99 or $9.99 rather than $10. Somehow that has an effect, a psychological effect on customers. But without the penny, that kind of psychological effect may no longer be present, and then it may be that over time, this rounding would have no net effect.
May I follow up? May I follow up?
Yes, please. I'm sorry for the distraction from my right.
And actually, I was going to make that part of my question. I didn't want to make it too long, but with tax involved, any idea how it works out with that, with sales tax involved?
Sponsor.
The sales tax that would be owed on the purchase before the rounding would still, pardon me?
I was thinking it would have to be post-rounding because there would be product and tax included, right, on the rounding?
Yes, and I guess I'm referring to an electronic transfer. The tax would be applied the exact same way. It would be applied on the purchase, whether it was electronic or cash and had been rounded.
Chairman Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to know if in the future, rather than saying a penny for your thoughts, do we have to say a nickel for your thoughts, or we just go down to zero and say no?
It's okay, Chairman Baum. You can just sit there and smile at that one. No response required. Seeing no other questions, we have come to the point. Representative Vital, do you need to be recognized? You are recognized, and you called a question on the bill, so therefore we are now voting. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1744 to calendar and rules as it is amended, please show it on the board. Madam Clerk, please call the results.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes and no nos.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. You're
Thank-
off
thank you,
to
committee.
calendar and rules.
Thank you.
Round out our day today. Chairman Faison's already complaining about how hard he's had to work and think this morning, trying to get proceedings sped up. Short timers are known to do that. Chairman Martin, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm out of order, but I have Gibson County Youth Leadership in the house today. So welcome them to the chamber and here with us.
Shout out to Gibson County. All right. Chairman Sapicki, you're recognized on House Bill 1194. We got a motion and a second. You know, you've got an amendment. Does that amendment make this bill?
It does. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let's get that amendment. We got a motion. We got a second. All those in favor of attaching Amendment 1 signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. The amendment's attached. Tell us about 1194.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman
Chairman.
Sapicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill 1194 lowers from 6 to 1 the number of paid employees an individual must have to be considered a private employer for the purposes of the Tennessee Lawful Employment Act. Requires all private employers to submit certain evidence of work authorization status of employees and non-employees to the Commissioner of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, who shall, upon the failure of a private employer to submit evidence, request an order of summary action requiring the suspension of the private employer's business license for failure to comply for a first or second violation. The private employer's license is temporarily suspended until the violation is remedied. For a third and subsequent violation, the licensee is suspended permanently. That's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Chairman Sapicki, do we have any questions for the bill sponsor? All right, Representative Lynn.
The company I work for, we have about 40-some locations in Tennessee, and we use what's called a PEO, a Professional Employer Organization, and they're based in Alabama. And by law, the purpose of for tax purposes, filing purposes, the PEO is the employer. For supervisory purposes, we're the employer. How does that work for companies like ours who have a PEO out of state? So technically they work for the PEO, even our W-2s have that PEO's name on it out of state. How would that work for us in Tennessee?
Chairman Sapicki.
Thank you for the question. When I was an employee of a bank here, that's a regional bank, they still had to do the Tennessee employment verification on me. So they had to do the state verification or the E-Verify verification to make sure that I was who I am and I'm legal to work here in the state of Tennessee.
Representative Lynn.
Our PEO takes care of all of that. So I am really not sure how that goes. Maybe I can you, whoever in the department is working with you, can you have them give me a call?
So we do have the department here in case there was a question like this that came up, Mr. Chairman.
And so that folks understand what they're voting on here, it's my understanding that before, employers who had 6 or less employees were exempt from this law, and the documentation that they have to submit and keep or that the employee submits and the employer retains can be a copy of a driver's license, can be a passport, photo, those type things, or they can choose to use E-Verify. But there are a number of, or an I-9 verification. So we're just changing the law to say all employers have got to get identification on the people they're hiring is the functional effect of this bill. Am I correct, sponsor?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Any further questions? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1194 to calendar and rules as amended, please vote green. Any opposed? Seeing none. Could you call the vote, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes and no nos.
All righty. With that, 1194 passes out of here and heads to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr.
Sponsor.
Chairman. Thank you.
That concludes our time together, unless I think we've got the room for another 30 minutes to an hour. If you wanted to congregate and make merry, I'm sure as long as the Sergeant at Arms didn't find your activities to be troublesome, you're welcome to stay. But the rest of us, we're going to continue with the people's business elsewhere. We'll see you in 2 weeks, folks. We're adjourned.